happy Mother's Day to all moms here present. And a happy Mother's Day also to those who have been mothers in different ways. There was a mother in spirit. We have so many in our lives who kind of touched us in this way and been for us an image of God's love. As Father Don said at the beginning of our Mass today, this motherly love is a manifestation of the way in which God feels towards us and his love for us. You know, our relationship with our mom is often the first glimpse of the Father's heart. God, who is Father, but also has these maternal qualities. The way in which a mom cares for, nurtures, loves her children is an image of God the Father. So we give thanks to God for the gift of our moms and for the sacrifices and generosity that mothers make so naturally and so consistently towards their children. Remember also those who wish to be moms and are not able for whatever reason. Remember those in our prayer today as well. When I think of the love of a mother, I often remember this story that my mom would tell of her mother, my grandmother. My grandma grew up in poverty and raised her children in some difficult circumstances. And in those lean times, she would prepare a meal and feed her children, and then she would pour herself a smaller portion, but without showing that to the kids. She would pretend to eat, or pretend to have meat in her portion, without letting the children know, so that they wouldn't worry, they wouldn't be concerned for her. Just such a powerful image and example that stands out to me of the sacrifice that moms make so naturally, so generously for their children. Such a powerful image of the way in which God feels towards us and acts towards us and desires to be in relationship with us. We're very blessed in my family to welcome, I have a new little nephew. He's here today, little Jesse, born 2 weeks ago today. And it's just such a gift, obviously for my sister and their family, but for all the extended family. And it's just so beautiful to see the kind of development and how, so soon after birth, little Jesse recognizes his mom's voice. That you can imagine just how new everything is for him, all the sensory stimuli, seeing new things, hearing new things, all sort of coming at him. And yet in the midst of all of that, he recognizes his mom's voice and turns towards her. He knows this is where he can look for safety, for nurturance, for those things which he needs. Such a great image of our relationship with God, especially today. It's very striking. As Mother's Day falls on today, Good Shepherd Sunday, fourth Sunday of Easter, we often have a passage of Scripture that speaks of Jesus as the Good Shepherd. And today we hear about his voice, about knowing his voice, responding to his voice. In a similar way, we are invited to reflect on how we listen. How do we discern his voice amid so many distractions and so many competing voices that come at us all the time? And there's something about the quality of the shepherd's voice that we know it when we hear it. There's something that penetrates, something that touches the heart. We catch a glimpse of it in our second reading today, a beautiful image in the book of Revelation. This vast multitude gathered before God. And this tenderness that after the great tribulation, God wipes away every tear from our eyes. It's a kind of message in Scripture that just penetrates and touches the heart. And we know this to be the voice of the Good Shepherd. There's so many other passages, so many other moments in our lives where we encounter something like this that penetrates deeply and we just know this is of the Lord. This is his love and his nurturance reaching out to us. We're invited to turn towards him. The voice is sometimes challenging. In the Acts of the Apostles, in our first reading, we hear Paul and Barnabas preaching, and they're challenging words, and they are disruptive. And sometimes we encounter that too, where we know it's the voice of the shepherd. It's penetrating something deeply in my heart, and it's challenging. And sometimes it's hard to turn towards that voice that we know to be true and yet is disruptive. And so it can be so easy to turn away, as many did in our first reading. And so there's an aspect on this Good Shepherd Sunday of reflecting on how we listen, on this discerning of the Good Shepherd's voice in our midst, and really consciously turning towards him and trusting that his voice is one of love and acceptance and kindness. We're also challenged to be that voice for others. Just as for each of us, our relationship with God is often mediated through others, through community, through relationship. That in our encounters with one another, we can encounter God. And their voice can be, in some ways, the voice of God speaking to us at a particular time in a particular way. So we are called to step up and be that voice as well. I was traveling recently and watched a movie on a plane, kind of a lighthearted, feel-good movie called Sunrise. And I followed this story of a young man with a pervasive developmental disability, faces many challenges in his life, but has this kind of innocent and naive desire to do something good, to fight for good. He really wants to join the Marines, and he's pestering the drafting agency. He's going there constantly, sending letters, just kind of desperate to be accepted. And it's really kind of cute the way that the sergeant kind of deals with him, and there's a kind of beautiful interaction. But there's a tragic moment in the story where a woman that he's connected with ends her life. And she leaves in her note that if somebody stops me and asks how I am, says hello and asks how I'm doing, I won't do it. I won't go through with it. And sadly, in this fictional story, no one does. And there's this transformation that happens for this young man where he realizes this is the good that he's being called to do. And the movie ends with him walking across the Golden Gate Bridge, stopping people, looking at them and saying, hello, how are you? Trying to be that voice for others. This is part of our challenge as Christians, part of our vocation, to be that voice of the Good Shepherd in our relationships, to our neighbors, and even to strangers. Part of being a community here at All Saints is making this conscious effort to connect, to reach out, to be a real community that engages with one another. We've been emphasizing the importance of hospitality the past few weeks, and we'll hear later an invitation to become more involved, to maybe even be a greeter at the door of the church, to be that voice of welcome to the stranger, welcome to those who come to worship with us. Regardless of the manner in which we do this, we are all called to take a little step of courage, to reach out to somebody new, to be that voice of the Good Shepherd, a voice of welcome, a voice of kindness, and a voice of truth. On this Mother's Day, give thanks to God for you mothers and for all who have been a mother to us. And we give thanks for this nurturing, tender love that God has for each of us. We respond, or we take up this challenge to turn more towards that voice and to be that voice in our relationships with one another.